Good evening, everyone. It's the Rangers Review. It's a Saturday night, Chris. It's 9 o'clock, but we are still here and we're here to discuss big breaking news. If you have not seen it, the news that Chris had on the website around about half an hour ago, talks between Rangers and Steven Gerrard have broken down. He will not be returning to the club at this moment in time for his second stint as the club's manager. Chris, I'll come straight to you. You and Derek were on yesterday. Your Twitter timeline took a bit of a hammering yesterday when you didn't confirm this was happening. You said, look, talks have been going well. That was our understanding on it, but it wasn't signed and sealed and delivered. And until these things are signed and sealed and delivered, a lot can happen. Just bring us up to speed with what's happened and why we are on this podcast at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night.
We're here because you asked me to be, but it makes sense. Though when the news is this significant, it makes sense to jump on and try and give the viewers a bit of insight into how Rangers have got themselves into this position. As you said, spoke with Derek on the afternoon show yesterday, and at that stage, it looked like Steven Gerrard was set to become Rangers manager. We didn't say that a deal had been done. It was not agreed at that stage. But given how things had unfolded, the kind of noise and the momentum, everything was pointing to a Gerrard being everything was pointing to Steven Gerrard being Rangers manager. I got a message from someone last night to say that there's perhaps a hitch in the negotiations, and that it might not be as smooth as people had initially suspected. Been a lot of chat over the course of the day about what the state of this deal was. The longer it goes on, the longer there's no positive noises coming out, you do start to wonder, you do start to fear, and that's the situation. As I say, we brought that news to you on social media and on the site about half an hour or so ago. And Steven Gerrard and Rangers, they will not continue in this process, and Steven Gerrard will not be the next manager of Rangers Football Club.
Yeah, I've just got my phone out and I'm reading elements of that story that you've just put out, Chris. Our understanding is that those initial talks had been positive, and we'd said a couple of days ago that one of the creases that would need to be ironed out, and there's a lot of them because the timing of this wasn't the right time for Gerrard, but more than anything, the structure that Rangers have said they're kind of pivoting towards seemed to be quite a clash with how Gerrard acted last time round, because he was the manager. He had a big say, and he's a big voice. And it's not that he cannot work collaboratively. Clearly he can. He's spoken at length about his management staff, but his role in the food chain, working under a CEO, a sporting director, with a lot of executives added at Rangers in recent times, that was up for some debate. The discussions were said to be positive right up until yesterday. From your understanding, there's been a lot of noise about why exactly this might not happen. Is it a case of just not quite the right time? Naturally, as you will know and understand, there's going to be a lot of disappointment about this news. And I think because of that, as we'll come on to, that probably puts a bit of pressure on whoever does end up getting this head coach slash manager role.
I think the word tonight is that Rangers are still continuing the process to appoint a head coach. People will maybe read into that what they want, but as you said there, Josh, discussions had been positive. I think the fact that Steven and the Rangers delegation, again, as we've reported on over the course of the week, the fact that they thought there was enough in it for them to meet in London and go through a couple of days and a couple of stages of interviews to the extent, but more a conversation about where both sides were, what this deal could potentially look like. I don't think Steven had to have an interview as such. It wouldn't have been a grilling from one side to the other. I think he would have asked as many questions of the club as the club would have asked of him. The immediate news that we'll be able to bring you is that Steven feels the timing's not quite right to return at this stage. The reasons behind that, who knows? That's what we'll try and get to the bottom of over the course of the coming hours, coming days, coming weeks even. But ultimately, Rangers have to now move on. They have to go and find a head coach, because we spoke right at the start of the week after Russell Martin's departure. It feels like a lot longer than just a few days ago. We spoke then about that Dundee United game being a natural point that people were looking at for a manager to come in. There was a lot of talk, we've seen a lot of speculation online about how far along this deal was. There was reports down south yesterday that it was all but agreed. I think they tempered that a bit on the site and on the show yesterday, trying to kind of give people a bit of insight into where it actually was. You might not like that news, but it's not our job to bring you news that you like. It's our job to bring you news as is the news. So we were able to bring you that update yesterday. It's clearly evolved over the next 24, 36 hours or so. And we've now got to the situation where, as I say, Steven has withdrawn from that process to become Rangers manager.
Yeah, a lot of this in the comments, Chris. Dave says, I have to be honest, I'm absolutely raging. Saturday night is maybe part of the reason, not great timing for it. But Chris, as you say, the delegation, Steven Gerrard's delegation, they were not travelling to London for, hi, how are you doing? Let's catch up. How's the family type of talks? There was a very real and serious element that this could happen. Up until yesterday, we were reporting that while Rangers were playing down the notion of a favourite and still saying that multiple talks with multiple candidates were ongoing, he seemed, and if you spoke to certain people around it, like the clear and obvious choice. Just to pivot it on slightly, because we also had in our reporting yesterday that Danny Rowland held talks with Rangers too, most recently in work with Sheffield Wednesday. When you've had an unpopular appointment in the summer, and when you've then had seemingly an obvious popular appointment in Steven Gerrard, and as you say, if that's also coming from his side, that it's maybe not the right time, we need to present both sides of the story here. But to what extent does this make it kind of difficult for the next man who comes in? Because you could totally understand the anticipation and the excitement about Gerrard coming back, purely because he's the only Rangers manager who's won a league title in far too long. This process that is now ongoing with Danny Rowell is one of those names. We don't believe the only name, but one of those names. How does this kind of change the dynamic in that search for what Rangers are keen to stress, a head coach instead of a manager, it seems?
It puts huge pressure on whoever the next manager, next head coach is going to be. It puts huge pressure on him because he will, I think, in the eyes of the fans, he'll be the second choice. I had a piece on the site on Monday, Tuesday at the start of the week, outlining why I believed Steven Gerrard was the ideal candidate. I've said a number of videos, number of pieces that we've written on the site. I've been consistent over the course of the week that I thought Gerrard was the best candidate. I thought he ticked the most boxes. And you saw a real kind of groundswell of opinion, not amongst every Rangers fan. Now, we've seen a bit of social media chat. We see it on the channel. We see it in the comment section on the YouTube and on the website as well. He was not a universally popular choice, but he was certainly an overwhelmingly positive choice. There was a lot of reasons for people to get behind Steven Gerrard. I think his appointment would have given the club and the support a real lift, a real sense of feel-good factor heading into this next batch of games and heading into the rest of the season. So whoever it's going to be is going to have to deal with that. We saw how difficult it was for Russell Martin in the summer. He knew that he was not a popular choice. He knew that he had a lot of people to try and win over, and ultimately he couldn't do that. The results, the performances were not there. Whoever comes in now, to say they have to hit the ground running is a huge understatement.
Yeah.
They need to go. The team has to perform to a higher level, and they need to win games both domestically and in Europe. We really need to see Rangers pick up, and whoever it is now, they have to start well. If you start well, you will get the fans on board. I think that was something Russell Martin didn't quite grasp at times. There's a lot of talk about they didn't want me anyway, and there was a lot of stuff about his lifestyle and his look and not wearing a suit and all the rest of it. See if you'd won 6 games out of 6 and then gone on and won 8 games out of 8 or 10 games out of 10, none of that would have made any difference at all. He was sacked and he was under pressure because he didn't win games. He didn't have a team that was performing well, and that's going to be the same for regardless of who the manager is. That would have been the same for Steven Gerrard, and it won't be Steven Gerrard. but whoever comes in, you know that they're going to have to hit the ground running.
Yeah, there's a lot of this, and there's so many comments coming in, so we will get to as many as we can. John Johnson saying, who realistically would get fans excited? And again, Chris, just to give the kind of wider context, you see, if this was in the summer and the new Rangers regime hadn't made an appointment yet within this new structure, I think the tone is different. Now, our understanding is that it was just really an inquiry with Gerrard this summer. It was nothing in depth, nothing detailed, nothing like the kind of talks that lasted more than one day that has happened this time around. But I guess, again, Chris, that's why there is so much added, what would I say, emotion around this appointment, because Rangers got it so wrong in the summer when it took them quite a long time to come up with Russell Martin. Steven Gerrard seemed to short-circuit that somewhat because he'd been here before. There would probably have to be some alteration from the type of format that Martin was working within as a head coach. So that's important to remember too, isn't it? That it's not just about the desire for a lot of people to see Steven Gerrard back. It's because what happened in the summer didn't work, which again, that puts more pressure on this as well at the moment, not least because, let's not forget, Rangers are still in all competitions at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But if you lose one more game in Europe, if you don't pick up maximum points against Dundee United, your season can look a lot worse in a week's time. Of course, if you get positive results in that competition, it's a different story. But so far this season, Rangers haven't looked very capable of getting consistent results in any competition, have they?
They've not, and that's why there's also huge pressure on the manager. There's huge pressure on the squad, but there's even more pressure on this board and this executive. Again, we spoke a lot about that during the final weeks, final days, and the aftermath of Russell Martin's departure. There is a huge amount of pressure on Rangers to get this one right. It looked to me like Gerrard was the obvious choice. Sometimes the obvious choice can be the right one. There was nothing to suggest that he wasn't the right one for Rangers. Ultimately, it's not happened. I think you see that things can get so far, and just because they get so far doesn't mean to say that they get over the line. I've seen that in transfers over this summer and in previous years. There's a lot goes into signing a player. There's a lot goes into appointing a manager. We've been consistent on the show to say that Gerrard was not the only candidate, that there were other candidates that the club are speaking to, other people. I think we were the first ones to have earlier on in the week that Danny Rowe was one of those candidates. So the timescale now is really important. As I mentioned earlier on, that Dundee United game is so important for Rangers. They have to win it. If you drop a couple of points at home to United, your chances of winning the Premiership are arguably done and dusted. You're then going into European. There's a huge couple of weeks coming up for Rangers. So the board, chairman, executive, they have to get this one right. The manager has to make a good start. The players certainly have to improve because they've been nowhere near good enough over the course of the season so far. And you can't help but underestimate, or you can't underestimate, just how important this next couple of days and weeks are for Rangers, not just for this season, but for seasons to come. Got it so badly wrong with Russell Martin. Yeah. The blue 4 months, the blue £40 million almost. Can't make that mistake again.
Yeah, absolutely not. Let's get to some comments. Dennis is one of quite a few talking about Derek McInnes, whose name will undoubtedly come back up after this. The word from Hearts earlier in the week was that there hadn't been an official approach, but obviously a name that has been attached with just about every Rangers managerial hunt in recent years, Chris, and there's been absolutely no shortage of those. That's what Big Mike says as well. Go give Hearts what they want to get McInnes in. Good friend of the show, Maka, had a feeling this would happen and that Rangers would end up with Danny Rowe. He doesn't think that news would go down particularly well. Davester too on that McInnes train. He thinks he's the right man for Rangers. Raymond saying a similar thing to you, Chris, that you need fans on your side. The new manager has a big job to do that. Winning early is a must, and because of how badly Rangers have started the season, because they were in this weird post-results reality for so long. There is not much grace period. There's not much wiggle room to not win right away. And Jennifer says, again, probably reflecting a lot of views, I was so invested in Gerrard, felt he would have brought the 12th man back to the stands. I don't see the other candidates mentioned doing that. The pressure is definitely on. Chris, to put you on the spot, is there anyone that, another comment here from Ian saying people shoot me down for this, but Stephen Robinson should be the next Rangers manager. He excites me because he'd win domestic trophies every year. Is there anyone that stands out? Obviously, evidently, and again, I guess we should come back to the point that Rangers have been keen to stress that phrase head coach. It felt like maybe Gerrard was perhaps the only name that they would stretch that for, that they would alter the structure that they've built over summer, which admittedly hasn't worked very well so far. Is there anyone that you think jumps out? You can say no because, spoiler alert, I don't think there's a clear and obvious candidate, and that's why there's so much pressure on it because of what happened this summer.
I think Steven Gerrard was the clear and obvious candidate. Said that right throughout the week on the show, on the pieces that were written. I think he was the only one that could have, not, as I mentioned earlier on, not a universal backing of the Rangers support, but would get a real high level of buy-in. I think someone like Derek McInnes would get a significant amount of buy-in. I've seen a lot of people mention Stephen Robinson. A couple of names doing the rounds today are Kieran McKenna and Michael Carrick. We've been trying to get to the bottom of those two to see if there's anything in it. So that process for us steps up tomorrow. Now that Steven Gerrard, the front runner, the man that looked like he was going to get the job, now that is off the table, all attention's turned to who's going to be next. So that's going to take care of our Sunday to try and find out if there's anything in those two names, to see what the situation is with Danny Rowe, to see if there's any other names that haven't come to the fore yet, if they are in this running. It's been a difficult few days, a difficult process, but I say we always try and bring our viewers and our readers and our listeners, we try and bring the best news and most up-to-date news. It might not always be the news that you like, that you want, but the news is the news, and I should know that better than most, having done this for long enough.
Yeah, longer than me. The news tonight, therefore, folks, if you're just tuning in, I'm sure you're not. I'm sure you have already seen it. Steven Gerrard will not be the next Rangers managers after those talks broke down, with it not thought to be the right time for Steven Gerrard. Rangers under pressure to get a head coach relatively quickly, Chris, because at the moment they've got a team. They've not announced a formal interim team, but Stevie Smith and Brian Gilmore, Rhys Owen and Sal Bibble have been taking training. Obviously, a number of Rangers players away on international duty, the likes of Tello Asgard and Nico Raskin, who had a brilliant performance for Belgium, I'm led to believe, last night, although I did not see it. But we'll leave it there. We may well be back tomorrow if any developments happen. I would not put it past this particular managerial hunt. As ever, if you enjoy what we do, please subscribe for free on YouTube. Really helps us out. And subscribe to the website too for all the best and latest Rangers coverage. We're going to go and let Chris enjoy the rest of his Saturday night, maybe, that he's not spending on WhatsApp. We will speak to you soon. Thanks for joining us, and bye for now.